Okay, here we
All right.
are. All right. Here we are with Eesmyal Santos-Brault from Quantified Citizen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Jason.
All right. So why don't we start with a little introduction about Quantified Citizen for those who aren't familiar? What are you guys up
Sure.
to? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're a Canadian company, Canadian startup, and basically we built a platform for you to learn about your own self, your health, while contributing to research. So basically, it's a mobile health research platform, and where you can put together a study really easily. That could be for a clinical trial or an observational study or direct to consumer product market research study, and then deploy that study natively to a mobile app, and then recruit participants who are engaged in that topic in your study.
Right.
And so it's a kind of two-sided marketplace, one for the researchers who are the customers, and the other is the consumers, the participants who participate in studies.
Hmm.
So that's it in a nutshell.
So we're kind of crowdsourcing research data, like, survey data for research studies. Is that it?
Kind of. I mean, you've kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the idea behind it, and the name quantified citizen is a portmanteau of quantified self and citizen science. So we're in the
Hmm.
business of democratizing the research process. So we're wanting to make the platform really easy to use so that anyone can come up with a study. You don't have to be a professional researcher. We're all experimenting with our health all the time.
Mm.
The challenge is that a lot of this experimentation is not documented, it's unstructured data. And so, how do you create a platform to daylight that data, those experiments we're all doing all the time, whether it's psychedelic microdosing or new health regimes or experiments with different kinds of intermittent fasting? There's so many things that we're doing, that it takes a long time for that anecdotal information to move to the generalizable knowledge scientific community. And so, what
Right.
we've done is built a tool to do that, starting first with the professional researchers. So we haven't quite opened it up yet for the citizen scientists yet. We're working with communities right now on
Mm.
community-based studies, and then we're going to be moving back into the citizen science model, but starting with professional researchers. So we're doing clinical trials, observational studies, and then we collect real-world evidence and data to support those studies.
Okay, so I mean, I guess one of the benefits right off the bat is it kind of eases access for researchers. I mean, getting a study going, accessing data points from hundreds or thousands of participants is a costly endeavor that kind of reduces the velocity of research in a certain area. So that this we want to speed things along. This is gonna kind of help research get access to data a bit more easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a several problems this our product and our business solves, and one is around just the speed, as you mentioned, and the cost, all the inefficiencies that are involved in just traditional research. It's so expensive to run clinical trials, and so there's a lot of labor involved, and just so much of it can be automated, done through software. And so, just simply having one platform that's all digital, that can support decentralized clinical trials,
Mm.
is already a step in massive efficiency in time and money in doing studies. So that's one thing that helps right off the bat. Be able to directly collect information from patients and participants through their mobile phones, patient-reported outcomes, but also we collect wearable data as well. So we can collect the biometric information that can support the studies, do cognitive tests, things like that. So that adds a lot of valuable data to the data set, the preclinical data. And so that's one part that we're solving. The second part is around just finding participants. It's the recruitment side. The big
Mm.
challenge is huge companies out there that their whole business model is recruitment of participants to match for studies.
Yeah.
That's the other side of the platform. The consumer facing mobile app is growing this really large participant base, not just
Mhm.
participants that are diverse and interested in these topics, but are engaged. So then,
Mhm.
when a client comes to us with a study that they want to do, let's say it's a study on, they're looking for 250 Latin American women with Crohn's disease in a certain state in the US. We can query our database and say, yes, we have, 315, and of those, this many are actively engaged and really engaged, and also have a bunch of preclinical data like existing mental health assessments or Crohn's disease assessments that they've already done and been tracking on their own. And we
Right.
think they'd be highly engaged in your study. And then we can deploy that, notify those participants and say, hey, there's a study that totally matches your interest. Would you like to learn more? And we can engage those
Got
participants
it.
in that study. So those are the two sides that we're solving.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, as a commercial model, I'm guessing companies or organizations who have capital to spend on trials or research, they'd reach out to you to help them speed that along.
Yeah. So when we started, it was really just we really just wanting to validate this platform. Just if we build it, will they come? Like, will this work? And works with some amazing researchers out there, like Dr. Zachary Walsh and Dr. Pam Crisco and Paul Stamets and a number of others on our 19,000 participant global microdosing study.
Hmm.
And that got launched on Joe Rogan. Paul was on Joe Rogan and announced it, and went viral, and so we had lots of participants join, and we were able to really validate that, hey, we can build something that can do an actual research ethics approved observational study, collect good data, and so the focus was really on the product, on just making it work. And we hadn't done any marketing. So we're only just getting into
Hmm.
marketing and getting the product out there and letting people know, hey, we exist. You can use our platform. It works,
Yeah.
and it's validated.
Yeah, the microdosing study. I guess maybe you could maybe tell people about it quickly, but it did come across in the industry for sure. It was a microdosing study that had 19,000 participants, and with a name like Paul Stamets behind it, it definitely made some news. So I'm assuming that was your biggest one to date.
That's been our biggest study to date. We anticipate there'll be a lot more. That'll be a lot bigger. We're working with a number of other influencers on different topics.
Mm.
And but that one's been super amazing, and we learned a lot. And we had two papers published in Nature Scientific Reports on the study itself. The most recent one just last week, actually.
Hmm.
And so the study itself is an observational study looking at the effects of microdosing, psychedelic microdosing, on mental health and cognitive performance. And so we're looking at both microdosers and non-microdosers. So amazingly, of those 19,000, more than half of them were non-microdosers. So they served as a control group just to
Hmm.
support the study, which is friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I mean, it was pretty onerous. It's a pretty onerous study. It's ongoing anyway. If anyone's interested, microdose.me is the website. You can learn more about it. But yeah, the first paper was really around the demographics and the mental health outcomes, and we learned that there were some correlations in terms of improved mental health outcomes for those who microdose compared to those who didn't. Our second paper looked at that a bit further, but also looked more in detail around the cognitive performance. And in particular, we were looking at a particular cognitive test that we ran on the app called the finger tapping test, and which is a test that's used quite widely and is validated for all kinds of neurological conditions like Parkinson's and stuff like that. And we were able to determine that, what it seems obvious, that there was no benefit, no change from microdosers to non-microdosers below the age of 55, because,
Mm.
signs of cognitive decline don't really hit you till you get older.
Right.
But so what we did find, though, was for people over the age of 55, there was a significant improvement in the cognitive performance as measured by the TAP test for those
Mm.
over 55 who are microdosing. The large number of them were microdosing with psilocybin compared to
Hmm.
those who weren't microdosing. And then when we looked into that microdosing group, we noticed even stronger improvements with those who were microdosing with psilocybin and lion's mane and niacin as a stack
Hmm.
together. They call it the
Hmm.
Stamets stack, but and uh, and that group did even better. So you can see all this in the paper if you take a look. It's on microdose.me. There's links to the papers there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're redundant with the microdose term, but we at Microdose covered that study when it first came out. Um, so yeah, I guess that brings up some questions you mentioned there about. I'm assuming you're gonna like how to have it seem valid in the. I mean, these are years of reported data points. So I'm assuming you're doing. I mean, I think you mentioned this TAP test was a test that's normally used in the industry for cognitive testing. Like I'm guessing you're trying to implement as many things as possible to have to have the data seem valid for the wider kind of community?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, in order to actually contribute to research, in doing studies, you need to be using existing assessments and tests that have already been validated out
Mm,
there and have literature around that to support it. So, our whole platform has a library of validated assessments, from self-reported assessments to clinician-administered assessments to cognitive tests. So, you think about them like Lego blocks. You can drag and drop, create your own protocol in
mhm,
your study, and then deploy it and use all these validated tests,
mhm.
and then get valid data on the output.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I guess coming back, like how did this project work? Where was the impetus? You spent some time with Maps. I believe are you still on the board at Maps Canada?
Yeah, yeah, I'm the board chair of Maps Canada. I've been on the board for 3 years, and I'm also the co-founder of the Psychedelic Data Society, which is a partner sister organization with Quantified Citizen that
Mm,
has access to our platform and the QC platform, and is focusing on practitioner-led psychedelic research and underground research and psychonaut research. So, um, uh, yeah. So, how it came about was the question, like
yeah, I
the
guess. I
microdose.
mean, I'm assuming your experience in those other fields led you to see was there a need? Was there a lack of access to data? How do we get
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. No. Thanks for the. Yeah. It actually, it. Yeah. Thanks for that question, because that actually started the whole journey for myself and my business partner, Kaylin Harvey. We were just interested, like citizen scientists, like quantified self nerds, just hacks, like entrepreneurs. We started companies before and together, and we just wanted to do an experiment on ourselves and just see if psychedelic microdosing, worked for us or not.
Mm,
And at the time, there was no published research on the topic. It was just Jim Fadiman's research that had been done. It's a bit more anecdotal. And Jim, by the way, is part of our study now, the Microdose research team. So that's been
mm,
great. It's become a
yeah.
friend, and that's amazing. But yeah, it started with just this experiment. We wanted to know, and we built a basic, like, little hacky app for ourselves, just as a private little experiment with a group of friends to see if it worked. And then we decided, well, let's get a bit more rigorous with this and use validated assessments. And before we knew it, we had built the QC platform, a basic version of it.
Mm,
And we started meeting a lot of people in the industry who I have connections with, anyways, in psychedelic industry, who are just saying, this is a game changer. Like, being able to collect this kind of data in an anonymous way, structured data from
mm.
people directly from their mobile phone on these kinds of topics is amazing. It's way better than the tools that are currently being used. And you should, let's work together and take this up a level of caliber. And we did, and we started partnering. And so that really was the genesis of Quantified Citizen, was this, two citizen scientists experimenting, curious, like, shouldn't there be a tool out there to allow us to do these experiments? And
Mm.
so we scratched our own itch and built it, and then realized there's actually a large demand out there for this kind of tool in clinical research.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna guess that the demand's gonna increase as the industry is growing and trials are starting. Yeah. So I wonder if has there been pushback on the fact? I mean, is there kind of a stigma around it? Coming from an app and being self-reported. Do we have to get over? Is there a stigma around it? And if so, do we have to get over it? And I think psychedelic medicine is probably another kind of mental health. A lot of the measures are self-reported anyways. So uh, where are the limits? Like, is there a stigma, and are there limits? Is it just for preclinical? Would this be valid for a phase 1 trial? I mean, feel free to comment on
Yeah.
any of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's a stigma, but it really comes from just ignorance and, like, how research happens.
Hmm.
Like, even just with the publication or second manuscript, a lot of people are like, "Well, this is not a controlled study, or this is just
Hmm.
anecdotal." It's like, yeah, it's an observational study. That's the nature of an observational study. We're
Hmm.
collecting real world evidence. That's how it works, right? We can't demonstrate causation with an observational study. We can just show correlations, and the correlations, if they're strong enough, then we can use that to support and de-risk a clinical trial.
Hmm.
So way we look at it is in a kind of agile research framework. So similar to agile development, you think about like an MVP, a minimum viable product. What's the most basic thing you could do to get some signal? Well, for us, that's a pilot study, a really simple survey, simple basics survey where you can get some initial information. That's really low cost, low effort. You can put that out there, get information. You can iterate on that and go live. You don't have to worry about changing it because you haven't gone through research ethics on it. You're just getting information. Now you got enough information. Now you can use that information to de-risk and justify the funding to go through a more rigorous observational study, like the microdosing study, where you have research ethics approval, and now you can publish on that in an academic journal. When you get, now you've got lots of data to support, you need lots of participants. That's the thing with observational studies, you need lots of participants to get the strong statistical significance. And now you have data that can support and de-risk huge spending that these big psychedelic life science companies are spending in psychedelics. You can get signals there to help you design your clinical trials and de-risk them. So it's kind of an iterative process where you can go up. Now, our platform supports all those kinds of studies. So we're running 3 clinical trials right now on our platform. We've got an active one that's live right now at the University of Washington on psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy for first responders dealing with COVID distress. And we have a MAPS PVC.
Sorry, that's an FDA approved clinical trial?
Yeah, FDA approved clinical trial, and they're using the Quantified Citizen platform for it. So the platform is being used to collect the patient-reported outcomes from the participants, which they would normally be collecting anyways through either a paper form or a web survey or something like that. I mean, this is already happening anyways. It's way more convenient to be able to collect it from a mobile app.
Yeah.
You can also collect wearable data, passively collected stuff, which is great, right? Because you can't do that from a web survey or a piece of paper, right? You need an app to do that. And then for the kinds of assessments that require a clinician, we have a clinician portal where the clinicians can administer those assessments within our platform, and those get linked to the patient records. So most of the data collection happens within our platform for a clinical trial, and that's a controlled study. So you do both. You can do those kinds of studies. They're more expensive, they're more complicated. Those kinds of studies, by the way, I should explain, we have 2 different mobile apps. The main one that people are familiar with, if you just download the app, that's the public facing app. That's for those observational studies. There's large sample size studies. The clinical trials don't happen on that app. The clinical trials are on what's called QC Pro. It's a separate app, and you only get invited to that clinical trial that you've been invited to through a QR code or a special link. And that's the only study that you're experiencing within that app.
Yeah. So the QC Pro and the clinical trial, I mean, it's like you said, it's the same kind of paperwork that you would do anyways for a clinical trial, but the app facilitates it, makes it quicker, makes it
way quicker, and more fun, more interesting. I mean, it's boring as hell to be sitting at an iPad going into clinic. That's what they do. They'll bring people in to a clinic just to fill out a survey on a piece of paper or an iPad, and there might be some questions that a clinician asks them as well, that then they have to put it into a system, and then all that stuff gets collated into a platform, their data management system, and it's just like, it's so inefficient. It's amazing that this industry hasn't been disrupted yet. I mean, it is. There are definitely companies out there that are working in this space and are doing similar things to Quantified Citizen, but not in the same way.
Right. And I guess that's kind of an example of this stigma that we have to get over. So going in person, sitting down, but you don't realize that all you're doing is kind of self-reporting on something and entering it, then either writing it on a piece of paper or entering it to an iPad and then going home. And you're kind of doing the same thing, but with a much quicker timeline and much lower cost. So I think most people don't realize that a lot of data collecting, even if it's in the clinic, in the more traditional formal clinical trial setting, is very similar to what you're doing, just not on an app.
Well, it's actually really interesting, and I'm going to try to find the research on this so I can send it to you afterwards. But I recently learned about some research done on the effect that a doctor has on the level of honesty that a patient reports on doing an assessment in front of the doctor. So apparently, if you compare the level of honesty and accuracy, or honesty basically, of what is essentially a self-report in a form, a piece of paper, or a survey, when the patient is doing it in front of the doctor,
Mm.
they're actually more honest if they do it in front of a administrator or a nurse, sorry, than the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They're just more nervous, whatever it is, they're just not
Mm-hmm.
as honest. And then they're even more honest if it's more of an admin person. And they're
Yeah.
even more honest compared to the admin person if they do it at home by
Yeah.
themselves without the
Yeah.
pressure of anyone around. So
Yeah.
this is
Especially
this is
around
important.
psychedelics or mental health, or I mean,
I can imagine, yeah, especially the
issues.
stigma
Yeah.
around mental health, yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. So I think we're gonna what that's gonna maybe point to is more of data collection from people in their own natural environments at home, wherever they are. We're always carrying these devices around, so it's
Mm-hmm.
much easier to just to do it on the mobile app.
I feel very comfortable with my phone. It knows a lot about me.
Yeah.
It knows everything about me. It's seen me in my most vulnerable states. So okay, so what can we? It's a great introduction. I think we covered what you guys are doing. Is there anything like coming up, looking forward to, that we should keep an eye out, that people should be looking for?
Yeah, well, we're doing a number of community-based studies. So we're working with it'll be the first Reddit community study, community-led study. So working with the Reddit community at the HPPD community. These are people that I've got I can't remember the exact acronym right now off the top of my head, but these are people who I believe have consistent psychedelic experiences even when they're not on a substance.
Uh-huh.
And so they're going to be they're putting together a study. So we're working with these communities. They're designing the study and they're running it on our platform and then inviting their community to it. So that will be public. That'll be available. We're doing a women in psychedelics study, and we're doing a breath work study as well. So we're doing a number of interesting studies to really increase our diversity of our
Mm-hmm.
participants. So one of the issues with a lot of especially clinical research is that it's very white, dudes in their 30s or whatever, and it's not that diverse. It's not representative of actual populations, and so
Mm.
we're working really hard to diversify our participant pool so that and we're doing that by creating lots of different kinds of engaging studies on different topics that'll appeal to different communities, different ethnicities, different people with different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I'd say that's one thing to keep an eye out for. We're speaking at the ICPR conference, the big psychedelic conference in Amsterdam in September. So we've got we'll be speaking. Actually, I'll be speaking about the microdose study with specifically around the N of one, which means the sample size of one
Mm.
reports. So what I forgot to mention is, when you participate in research, it's like a black box if you're a participant. You don't get any information back.
Right.
What we're delivering, what we're promising to our users on our platform is personalized results. So any study you participate in, you get to learn about yourself. You get a personalized report on all of the assessments and what that means for you. And then you can also see what that means for you relative to the cohort that you're part of as well.
Mm.
So I'll be communicating about that, doing a talk on that at the ICPR conference on our N of one results. So it's pretty exciting. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And recently you had the second major microdose study that just came out a few days ago.
Yeah, in Nature Scientific Reports. So that one is the one I mentioned around the exciting changes that we noticed in cognitive performance with the finger
Yeah.
tap.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. We have a number of studies with the Beckley Foundation that will be launched very soon. Also, microdosing studies, one on
Interesting.
pain, one on mindfulness, and we are working with Wave Paths. They do psychedelic music therapy and integration. So they have a platform for generative music for different kinds of psychedelic experiences. Super
Mm-hmm.
cool. Amazing people from Imperial College in London, and so we're working with them on a study that should be launching pretty soon in the next few months, and that'll
Okay.
be pretty fun for those who are interested in experimenting with music and psychedelics.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I may sign up.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, so I'd encourage everyone, to check us out. Go to the App Store, go to our website, quantifiedcitizen.com. You can follow us on social media, download the app, give us feedback. Kinds of studies you're interested in, and become a citizen scientist. We're going to be opening that up in incrementally over the summer, the ability to do these experiments on yourself, and
Mhm.
then making it easier and easier to then create more rigorous studies for yourself,
Yeah.
but kind of gamifying it as we go.
Yeah. I mean, as the industry grows, there's going to be more and more opportunity for cool things to happen. All right. Okay. So keep us updated, and when there's news, we'll share it. And I look forward to following what you guys are doing, and see you at Wonderland, maybe.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
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 All
I
right.
think a very very high chance we'll see you there. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks for the talk, and let's speak soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jason.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you.